glad it's working. Yeah, I put it on the wrong internet last time. It just cut out halfway through. We're live?
Is this on the right internet?
It is on the right internet now, yeah. We live?
Yes, we are
yeah,
live
we're
on TikTok.
Awesome.
We're
live on YouTube as well.
It's notifying viewers that you are live.
Awesome. So guys, I'm going to kick off today's live session. If you guys have any questions, you're joining for the first time, if you're joining for the 30th time, if you're joining for the, what would it be now, like 300 and something time, then post the comments in the comment section, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on TikTok. We're going to be going through those in a second. I've got kind of 3 things to just touch on with you guys before we get into the Q&A part of today's live session. And the first one was kind of what the title of this live session was about: why back pain and sciatica is not the problem. And it sounds a bit counterintuitive, but hopefully this will make a little bit of sense. Because when we think of back pain, our pain as being the problem, when we think of our sciatica pain as being the problem, this thing in my leg or this thing in my back, the symptom as a problem, it leads us, especially in cases of lower back pain, to do the wrong sort of things. Now, if you start looking at ankle issues, yes, you might go into the realm of ankle pain or knee pain, but you very quickly get to the point of the actual injury. And once you've gone past the point that you're experiencing pain, you refer to the fact that my ankle injury is, my medial collateral ligament is a problem. My meniscus is the injury that is responsible to my pain. My knee's hurting. Oh, why is that? Because I've got a ligament strain or something like that. Whereas with back pain specifically and sciatica specifically, so often the pain is kind of the main thing that we are working on. And if we're working on the pain, this is why people get into, and I'll get a perfect segue over to Oscar's comment of is cat-cow safe, a perfect segue into something like the cat-cow. Now, Oscar, for example, and I'm reading between the lines here with regards to that question from, I think it was yesterday's live session, where we mentioned we're getting some back stiffness after our workouts or between our workouts. And this is a perfectly reasonable tension to experience after we've done a hard workout, for example, hip hinges, for example, squats in this area. And if we're just focusing on stiffness being the problem, we might necessarily go about doing things like child's pose. If we're just focused on our sciatic pain, what does that mean? We've got maybe some inflammation that's irritating nerves, so we're going to bend forwards. Or if we're just focusing on the sciatic pain in our leg, I'm just going to do a stretch here. I'm just going to stretch over to touch my toes and stretch my hamstring. I'm just going to approach very much the symptom all the time. And that is why so many people struggle. The short answer there to Oscar's question about is cat-cow safe, I would not be doing the cat-cow. We don't have limitations in mobility in our lumbar spine. I'll be focusing instead on things like using the massage gun over that area. Just a little bit of generalized motion, the towel decompression, the bed decompression, these things to help manage the perfectly reasonable stiffness that we get after working out. Pulling and stretching it apart, I just don't think has too much in the way of value right now. Although, Oscar, where you're getting to as you go forwards over into the new year, the notion of working on a little bit of spinal mobility, if you feel like that's necessary for you specifically, because we've built a good degree of strength, is something that you consider. But I would be very, 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 very careful about overly doing knee hugs and child's pose and things like the cat-cow when there's no need to do it, I would argue. If we can manage that stiffness post-workout with some other strategies, we're going to find we are building much, much better practices and defaults rather than anything else. And so when we're thinking about focusing on our back injury, the disc injury, the ligament strain, the facet joint issue, that's down there in the lumbar spine, really all back injuries are a segmental issue, and the best layer of analysis is that I have a injury to the region of my lower lumbar spine. We can set about doing things that are actually going to rebuild strength and resilience, rather than just chasing symptoms. The pain is a symptom, the back pain is a symptom, the backache is a symptom, the sciatic pain is a symptom. Let's focus instead, and this is the switch. So often before people join the program, they've been focused on trying to alleviate their symptoms rather than trying to fix their back injury. You don't see a lot of searches on the internet for back injury. You don't see a lot of searches for how do I fix my back injury. But you do see a ton for back pain and sciatica. And so yes, we start to get into the realms of disc injuries and disc herniations, which is that. But even when we're talking about disc herniations, we still end up focusing on the symptom rather than rebuilding the strength of the tissues themselves, supporting that healing and recovery process. So if we take the example of doing something like a knee hugs or a child's pose or those kind of stretches over and over again to deal with the symptom of stiffness, maybe in the buttocks or hamstrings, whatever, getting a cricket ball in there and those kind of things, how are they improving the health of my lower back? It's very difficult to make a case for how they are objectively making any change whatsoever. Whereas if we take something like a squat or a hip hinge, for example, and we say, for example, we've got Oscar here on YouTube, who the other day was doing 75 kilos, very, very good squats for 10 reps. We weren't doing that a while ago. We were doing a lot less than that, and that was not possible. But we've built up to that. It is very, very clear that if we had a herniated disc, some sort of back injury in the lumbar spine, and we could not do that kind of load 6 months ago, we could only do 10 kilos, or we could barely even pick up our water bottle because our back was so very vulnerable. And we've built back up to doing 75 kilos on the squat. We notice that ordinary things every day are no longer aggravating us. We have, make no mistake, built strength and resilience into that disc that has been herniated, that segment that has been injured, that spondylolisthesis, that degenerative disc. We were having a conversation yesterday about whether someone's saying degenerative discs don't heal. It's like they heal of a sort. They adapt to strain just like any other tissue, just because they are degenerate. The other thing to note is the scale of degenerative change that is there. But make no mistake, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy when you assume that you can get yourself stronger again, and you set about doing that. And that's what your rehabilitation should do, so that you can objectively measure the improvement in strength and resilience in your lumbar spine, and it displays the results for itself as you progress on. Anything else you think I should add in there, Lara?
Well, just very, very relevant to what you were just talking about. Luke Brooker on TikTok has said here, I've got a herniated disc, I'm assuming L5S1. The main issue is feeling it in my glute. Sitting down, I get pins and needles in the lower leg.
So what we've got there is we've got symptoms in the buttocks. We had someone else commenting the other day about in the members area, they drew a cool picture and said, I get pinching right here. You know, same sort of thing, right? What happens is when you do something that increases the strain on your lower lumbar disc, you get symptoms associated with a disc injury. And that's a perfect example here. Sitting puts anywhere from 20 to 40% through the lumbar spine, extra compared to standing. So if you're finding that you have a load tolerance issue when you're sitting, then you're going to find that when you put more strain on an injured structure, it's going to hurt. If I've just sprained my left ankle, I wouldn't be surprised if it starts hurting if I'm hopping on it. Yet the same thing is true for lower backs. It gets a little bit confusing because we have this referred pain. Because a lot of you guys, like in this particular case, you feel it in the buttocks. You feel it down the leg. You've got numbness in the big toe. And you think, why when I sit down do I get numbness in the big toe? This is why education is so important. But once you've been educated on the topic, you know. That is a perfectly reasonable referral mechanism from an injury in the lower back. So whenever you do anything to strain the lower back more, you're going to get aggravation of symptoms. Note that. Take a note down. It takes me 3.5 minutes, and then my sciatica or my symptoms associated with my lower back injury start to become unmanageable. My buttocks is on fire, and I've got this funny little pain going down my leg. Take note, and then put it to one side. You don't need to obsess about it anymore. Take note of it, and then get working on the fix, right? Get working on the fix. That's the most important thing. Get working on the rehabilitation work, and you will notice over time that that improves. Now all of a sudden you can sit for 5 minutes. Then you're sat one evening with your other half, and she's like, hey, you've been sat there for 20 minutes. You haven't complained about your leg once. You must be doing better. And you go, oh, I guess I am. Now, I'm not there yet, but you'll notice this. And often it's our family members that actually notice these things, or our friends or out doing things that notice these in the first instances, that you're doing certain things without struggling as much, which is cool.
Yeah.
Oscar said here, what about massage?
Yes.
Massage is good, right? We talk about using the massage gun. Why are we using this? To help provide, so do you remember we said a couple of sessions ago, we've talked about this many times before, there are 3 ways in which you can provide relief for your injury in your lower back. That was helpful, by the way, on TikTok. 3 ways in which you can provide relief for your lower back injury or your sciatic symptoms or your back pain. Number 1 is going to be something that directly helps the underlying injury and provides relief. So this could be like a towel decompression exercise. You're taking load off the section of the spine that is injured, and it's providing that relief. The second order benefit is something like massage. You can't really massage the disc, right? It's injured. But what we can do, for example, Oscar, he's had a hard session. This is something that catches a lot of people out when they start exploring what we would call phase 3 of the program, when they start working with load to actually make measurable change in the body. They get a little bit of leg muscle stiffness after the workout. They get a little bit of back muscle tightness after the workout. Why? Well, we wouldn't bat an eyelid. If I'd just gone and done 10 reps of bicep curls, I wouldn't, after I finished the session, I wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, my biceps sore and tense. I wouldn't be surprised by that. It wouldn't make me concerned in the slightest. Yet when we do some squats or hip hinges and we feel tension in the lower back musculature or the leg musculature, We sometimes get worried, and that's understandable. Once it's explained, it should be there. And often you tend to not have this same sort of worry in those that have worked out. And as we discussed the other week, what was it? 93 to 96% of you guys have no significant experience working out. So it's completely reasonable that that might be alien to you, but it's not unreasonable at all. And so if we're getting some muscle stiffness, yes, that's nothing to do with the injury per se, that's because we've done a workout. But using the massage gun or going to get a massage from a professional, or your other half, they're going to be able to do it, right, is going to help alleviate the stiffness, optimize the recovery times from that workout, and can be a valuable tool. As long as you understand what role it is. It's a second order benefit. It's helping you recover from your workout faster so you can continue through the progress, so you can manage the normal part of training, which is the consequence of that muscle stiffness, which can have a negative effect on you. So if your hip muscles tighten up after a workout in a perfectly reasonable manner because you just worked out the muscles, nothing to do with aggravating the lower back, it is very reasonable. If you do not manage that correctly, then your hips are going to move less well. So for the rest of the afternoon, more movement might be going through your lower back. So that's not that the exercise has made your back worse. It's that because the exercise has created a degree of stiffness in the leg muscles, which was not managed correctly, we aggravated our lower back afterwards. And that's a very important distinction to make, because sometimes people don't make that distinction, so they assume it's just a delayed consequence of working out and they did too much. No, you didn't manage the appropriate, manage things in the appropriate way.
Yes, I don't know whether Oscar's asking that in terms of he's going to potentially provide massage to his clients, or
no, it might be a bit of both.
or whether he's looking to get a massage. But one thing I always find after getting a massage is afterwards your back is always a little bit more vulnerable because you have a little bit more instability there. So just something to really consider.
There will be a lot of you guys that will have had experiences over the years, especially when you were vulnerable, when you were in the throes of it. You'd go and have a massage and you'd go, oh my gosh, I feel so good. And then you'd go and move and you'd flare yourself up right after. And you'd say, oh, the massage made me worse. One of the things that we don't understand or don't quite appreciate is sometimes actually, maybe more than sometimes, that stiffness that you have in the musculature around here is actually serving to protect you rather than be a problem. And so when these back muscles are tight, yes, there is a disadvantage, a double-edged sword, right? Because they're tight, they are creating a bit of compression through the discs, through the segment of the spine, a bit of stiffness, which can allow inflammation to build up. But at the same time, that tightness, that rigidity, that creates support, so it makes it less likely for you to bend the vertebra and flare things up more. So it is, with the lower back, it is a double-edged sword, right? It is a double-edged sword, and there's no way about it.
Good stuff. Awesome, Oscar. Really hope that helps you there. Okay, super. Did you want to do any more of the sort of announcements, or should we continue rolling with the questions?
I think if they've got any more on their phone, I can go through those, but
so
go ahead.
Tommy WRX on Twitter said, I just had an L5S1 disc replacement on Monday. What do you recommend for physio?
I think it's a really big shame that you don't already have the answer to that. That's really frustrating, you know.
As in from the consultant?
Yeah, you know, and we've been seeing it a lot on the lives. People coming in here and saying, like, you know, we had one I can't remember, lady or guy last week, and they were like, I paid 10 grand for a private. I think it was just a discectomy, and they were like, yep, job done. Oh, off we go, you know. And that was like, where's the rehab? Where's the support? The simple fact of the matter is, I assume, and I could be wrong here. Well, firstly, you should speak to your surgeon, right? They should have given you some guidance. If they haven't, maybe they forgot. So you just reach back out to them and say, hey guys, you just did this thing for me. Where's the rehab? So that's an important, first port of call. But secondly, I assume that you got sent home. I assume that you did that on your own steam, i.e. you got in your own car. I mean, you got out of the car and then you've been doing stuff around the house on a daily basis. And I assume there's some layer of guidance, right? But my question is really a question for you to go and have a think about, right? And maybe even run by your surgeon. You are doing things every single day. It includes getting dressed, getting out of bed, going downstairs, etc., etc., etc. So wouldn't it be a good idea if instead of being left to your own devices for the next X number of days, weeks and months maybe, you actually had a bit of guidance, learning to stabilize and protect this area? We've had a procedure down here. Is it not sensible to improve the way in which we can protect that area? Is it better that you get out of bed and struggle to do this? Or is it better that you actually had some guidance that maybe actually getting to the edge of the bed and just coming straight up in that direction is going to be with the core engaged? Oh, how do I engage my core? Well, that would be something good to learn as well, because you can do that lying on the bed, right? That's why we created the main exercises in the program, right? The dead bug and the marching bridge have easier versions to them. just for demonstration, I don't know, Laura, if I'm in the, if I go here, am I in the shot?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
The dead bug can start as simple as this, right? You can't even see I'm doing anything. So the notion that we couldn't start lying in bed after we've had surgery, because the important thing to note here is you have been sent home. If you're still in the hospital bed right now, please say, but I don't think that's the case, right? If you're lying in bed and you're about to get out of bed, is it not safer to learn how to engage your core here? Spend a bit of time. How do I actually activate these muscles to create a bit of protection for my lower back? Because you're about to get out of bed, maybe go to the bathroom. And quite frankly, if you're going to go to the bathroom, if you've got a bit of constipation from some of the medications that you've been taking, there's every likelihood that you're putting more strain through your lower back just going to the bathroom than anything else. But you've still been given the all clear to do that, because you look a bit strange at the surgeon if they said you're not allowed to go to the bathroom in the meantime, you know? So the sort of stuff we talk about, focus on learning. There's a lot of learning, right? So when we get members come into the program, we've had a good few, well, over the years anyway, but I've noted it mentally more recently. Members that have had things like microdiscectomies and surgeries and they're looking for some rehab and they've been given no support, so they come to the program. There are 7 to 9 strategy videos. Then there are the tutorial videos. This is just for phase 1. Then there are 40 educational videos that you can be working your way through over the next couple of days to a week. Before you even start doing an exercise, education is so powerful because there are things that you're likely doing that have resulted in you having the surgery, right? You've been making mistakes every day which have meant you haven't been able to recover from this back injury yourself. And so understanding some of those things, taking on board that education before you even start doing the rehab work wouldn't be a bad idea. And then, of course, you've got your dead bug, your marching bridge, your squat, your hip hinge, your step up, your single leg hip hinge. These exercises that, if you do them correctly, your spine doesn't move. And if you experience pain, it's because you did them wrong. So we go and explore precisely how we did them wrong. Those are really valuable frameworks for you to work with, whether you've just had surgery or whether you're thinking about surgery. We had someone yesterday on the live session. They said, I've got surgery booked for 12 months' time. That just is very interesting to have such a delayed surgery, right? But we start the rehab. Of course, being so close to your surgical intervention, have a conversation with your surgeon. But these are serious questions, and if you ask them in the right way, then you'll help encourage them to give you a smarter answer. Because if you say to the surgeon, hey, can I do squats? They're going to say, no, don't do squats. You just had surgery. What are you thinking? And then you say, yeah, but okay, that's fine. And then you go to say goodbye, and then you just sit in the chair, right? You don't get out of the chair. And then when they say, hey, you can go now, you say, yeah, but you said I can't squat, so how do I get out of the chair? Because you're sat in a chair like this, and your squat is only to here. So what are you doing for your lower back when you go from here to here? You're probably rounding it, or just falling into the chair. Well, is that worse for your lower back than carefully doing this? Probably not. So if you can explain it to them in that kind of manner and make them realize that they've already given you all clear to go home and do squats by virtue of the fact they haven't told you not to, and they've been okay with you getting out of their treatment room and going away, then we can start to reevaluate and look for the inconsistencies in the messages that they're sending.
Okay, good stuff. Hope that helps you there. Any follow-up, please do let us know. Just a quick one, as we were talking about squats, and then we're getting to Paul on YouTube. Sanula on TikTok said, how much load in kilos do you recommend starting with? I think that when it comes to the squats.
The right amount for you. So the way in which we structure it in the program is you guys start out with bodyweight squats. You're always looking for 2 key things when you perform any exercise. Aggravation-free. And the reason it's not pain-free is because some of you guys have pain all the time. And so it's aggravation-free. You're not getting elevation in the pain or the symptoms, because sometimes it's not pain, sometimes it's numbness or tingling, etc. And with correct choreography. So if you're doing a half rep squat, it's correct choreography for a half rep squat. If you're doing a full rep squat, it's a correct choreography for a full rep squat. If you're just bending your knees slightly, it's correct choreography, i.e. your spine isn't bending all over the shop whilst you're doing that movement. And you start with body weight. It might be for some people, they need to start with assisted squats. They need to hold onto the door frame and do a squat like so because they are so weak. And if that's you, that's fantastic. At least you realize now that that is the case and you can go and do something about it. You can't fix the thing that you don't know is an issue, right? And then we talk about in phase 2, we start playing around with a weight. Realize if you are not naked right now and you are wearing a jumper like I am, this has a weight to it. The weight is on my spine. And so it's important to understand and appreciate that there is no such thing as too much or too little weight, only too much or too little weight for you right now, because that will change over the course of the days, weeks, months, and years ahead, if you're actually progressing things. And so you start, when you first start playing around with weight, every single one of you watching this can probably do the weight of a phone with a squat, because you probably have got down or stood up, especially if you've been watching this the whole time, at some point during this chat. So we know that you can squat with a phone. Okay, what about a massage gun? That's a little bit heavier, right? Before we even think about using a weight, don't be fearful just because the weight is incredibly convenient and easy to hold, that it's somehow more scary than the many things that you hold every day. People will say, I'm worried about doing squats whilst I've got a toddler. Tell me you're not picking up that toddler to put them in bed or put them in the car seat. Not happening, right? You're doing that. So don't be worried about squats. That doesn't mean you are reckless with squats, but also you need to find the right weight for you. And that's a process that no one can answer, not even you, until you do it. So the thing that we talk about a lot is your rehab is your laboratory environment. It's the time in which you have control of all of the variables. Your technique's been banked in phase one. You've played around with it using like a phone weight, and then you grab an actual weight, and you go with something conservative. And then you test that. And then that's what we do in phase three. We're using a workout to test different weights in a safe environment so we can find the answer to that question. How much weight for me right now?
Perfect. Okay, awesome. Sunula, I hope that helps you. Paige, Amy, I will come back to you very soon. We're going to do Paul next.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, is there anything else that could be causing the sciatic nerve pain down my left leg? It feels as though it is on fire constantly. I want to sign up to your program, but the sciatica pain is so acute that I can't squat or hip hinge.
I assume you haven't been sat on or floating in the same spot. I'm being a bit tongue-in-cheek here, but it's hopefully to get you to think. I'm assuming you haven't been floating in the same space since the last time you were on the live. You've been moving, right? That's the simple truth, right? At the moment, you've been moving without any guidance whatsoever, without any instruction, without any improvement. And you're experiencing pain all the time. That is not an unreasonable starting point, and it is for many people. And often, people in this scenario have had investigations till the cows come home. You've been to see XYZ person. We know it's a back injury. You've just got a badly managed one. And so the simple fact, as I said, you haven't been floating in space between last session and now on the live, right? And I saw, Paul specifically, you tried to sign up, but it didn't quite go through or something like that, right? So you've done something between now and then. That's the important reality. So everything else you've done it anyway. So why not practice something that you're going to improve at, if you practice it sincerely, with actual instruction and guidance? And this is also the layer of, everyone will tell you to the millimeter location where their pain is. It's right here, and I find this little hair, and I go 3/4 of an inch to the left, and that's where my pain is. It's right there, don't you know? Yet they'll be like, I can't do a squat or a hip hinge. That's rubbish. It's not acceptable. You say, at specifically which point from here I have 3 out of 10 pain, 3 out of 10 pain, 4 out of 10 pain. Okay, what went wrong? You can do something, you just haven't found out precisely where we can go to. And that's the most important thing. You've got to find that precision. You have to work studiously at what you're doing. Hopefully that makes sense.
Paul, any follow-up
to
that? Please do let us know. He did say that he has tried, yes, he did try to sign. I'm not sure why he didn't go through.
Often it's the two-factor authentication. It's like, you know, your banking app says you've got to approve this transaction, or you get an SMS. Nowadays, it's with basically any time you do anything. It's actually a real pain, but I understand why you do it. Like, it's really annoying. You constantly have to get the phone out to buy anything. But that's the reason for that. Often people just aren't aware they need to properly authorize the payment. Yeah. But to that topic, you know, Paul will have done a squat between trying that and now. He's done a squat many times, right? So you can either continue to do it without any guidance, or you can start learning how to do it.
I think I've also seen Paul on live stream when I've been here. So Paul, it's fantastic that you're with us and that you're committed, and you are committed to getting the answers, which is a really, really good sign.
And I'm used to do the work with guidance.
Yeah, I mean, if you need any help with, I mean, if it doesn't go through again or etc., just reach out to the team.
Paul said it was exactly that.
Okay, there you are.
True FA.
And yeah, once you're in, get cracking, and then you'll be in the premium group, and then we can also go from there. Awesome. Right, I just quickly want to jump back to Paige, Amy. Unless, did you want to do any announcements, or should
no, I'll go through those a little bit later.
Okay. Yeah. So right, Paige, Amy on TikTok said, I get cramps in the leg. I had a L5S1 something. I think maybe like a disc herniation or sometimes overnight. Okay, so cramps in the night. I had an injection last year, so still getting leg cramps, I'm assuming, at nighttime.
I think sometimes I read into the comments, and I know they're limited in their duration, but
on TikTok they're very limited,
yeah,
aren't they?
sometimes I read, that also sometimes helps to keep things focused. Sometimes I read into what's not said in the comment as much as what is said. Because so often we'll say, well, I did injections, and it's, was it 12 months, a year, or something like that, and we're still getting situation. We make no mention of any proper rehabilitation work. The expectation, the real question is, what was the expectation that the injection would do, right? I mean this sincerely, and not to catch people out, because a lot of times we take a pain away. That goes back to literally the title of the live stream. You're having a procedure to deal with something that's not the problem, right? The pain is the motivator, the pain is the great motivator. And we see the flip side of this. When people feel better too soon, they often stop doing the rehabilitation work, and then they have a flare-up, and then they think there's something wrong. It's like, no, no, no. The thing is wrong is that you didn't continue the rehab when the pain went away, and that the pain will go away long before the injury has actually healed to a significant standard or strengthened to a significant standard. A big, big mistake. The reason we're still experiencing those sorts of cramps and that's this, that, the other. Obviously, if it's certain things like related to physical activity, cramping in the leg muscles, if you've just done a run and you're getting cramping in your calf, have a look at your electrolytes, muscular output, but we're not talking about that in most of these cases. We're talking about the symptoms associated with our sciatic pain, which is associated with our injury in the lumbar spine. And so that just tells me we probably haven't done the right sort of rehab. Well, evidently we haven't done the right sort of rehab. And often those injections, I would argue wrongly, are just sold as a thing on its own, right? They don't ask you, do you want fries with the burger? Do you want rehab with your injection? Or do you just want the burger, right? And too often it's just, here's the burger, we won't even offer you the fries. And that's a real problem because the two need to come together. I say time and time again, you have to have your injection, your treatment from an osteopath, your IDD therapy in the room behind me, big decompression table, the laser therapy, the local osteopath doing the hands-on stuff, the chiropractor, the physio doing whatever they're doing, as good as all of that stuff can be. That is the icing on the cake, the top of the pyramid. It needs to be on a firm foundation of education and a firm foundation of rehabilitation. And so often, in a significant number of the cases, the education is lacking, and equally but slightly less so, the rehabilitation is lacking. And that's the reason that we're not getting better in these sorts of scenarios. That is the reason that we're struggling so much, because we have an injection and we think that's it, I'm just waiting. And so many people will say, like, so many times people will say, I had an injection and I'm feeling this, and I guess I just need to wait a bit longer. It's like, what do you mean? What does the injection do to heal this? Nothing. It doesn't do anything. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Maybe you've had a corticosteroid injection to help try and calm down inflammation. Which part of calming down inflammation is actually healing? None of it. It's not healing you. It's not making you any stronger. There is no objective measures that you can take to demonstrate that that is going to improve the strength and resilience. Firstly, strength changes don't happen overnight. They don't happen in a moment that you have an injection, and they don't happen doing nothing over the 14 days or 7 days you were told to not do too much after you've had the injection. I would argue primarily the reason they tell you not to do too much is because they don't want to muddy the waters in terms of evaluating if you felt worse. So if, for example, you have an injection, then you go and do something, that thing is probably going to be the reason why you got aggravated, and then you go back and say, oh, well, injection, I'm feeling worse. And that's, yeah, but you decided you wanted to do a tip run, a run to the landfill, and empty out your spare room full of all the clothes that you don't use anymore. And you decided to do that the week after you've had an injection. That's nothing to do with the injection, that's because you decided to do that. But that's a failure of education, right? That's often why they say don't do anything. I would love to hear a surgeon's opinion on why they say that, because I'm pretty sure it's most likely coming from a clinician, right? Back in the days where we didn't have the program, we just in clinical practice, you tell patients don't do too much because you know the amount of times. I always remember this one case. We had a lady. We'd just been through her x-rays for her neck. The cervical spine should bend like this, right? Should have a lordosis, same as the neck, same as the lower back, sorry. Slightly different in its measure and its composition. It's a circle rather than an ellipse. The lumbar spine is a little bit different. Her neck in the standing position was like that. Her neck was going worse than that. It was bending the wrong way, right? Imagine if I walked in here and my knee bent backwards. You'd go, goodness gracious me, are you okay? Well, that was her neck. And unfortunately, you see a lot of ladies in particular these days, but maybe more so men as well, that have this kind of issue. It's not good. Not good at all. We discussed all of this. Yeah, got it. Boom. Do a treatment. Lovely. Fantastic. Feeling great. See you next time. Boom. Goes out. I see her at the elevator. What's she doing? Less than 10 minutes after I have spent 40 minutes talking about this lady's neck, who struggled going from pillar to post, seeing all sorts of different specialists from Europe to Russia to America, all around the world to fix her neck. And within 10 minutes, she's doing something precisely that we have discussed not to do, and certainly not to do after a treatment. This is a problem. This is a problem. How on earth are we going to get better if we trip ourselves up the moment we've walked out of the clinical environment? Something very important. And that happens frequently. And so maybe that's why the surgeon says don't do anything for 2 weeks. But you're misunderstanding why they're saying that. Perhaps.
Awesome.
Sorry to go off on a tangent, but that,
no, really good.
That one scenario, it was...
No,
you remember it as well.
I do remember it.
You remember it as well.
Because you went out of the clinic and you were like, so-and-so, you're doing it again. And she was just like, oh my goodness, because we're in these habits, and the habits are actually, you know, not very good for our health and well-being. I mean, we all know the phones aren't that good, but also for your neck as well. Right, where were we? So we've got some more questions coming through. Adrian here on TikTok has said, what to do if there is minimal pain after 2 years, but I want to get back into sports. I had an L5 herniated disc.
So I don't know what we've been doing in the last few years, but this is why rehab is so important. If you know that you can go over to that bar and put your body weight on it and just do a bunch of squats, 10 reps, let's say, then you know you've built strength and resilience. And this is, again, goes back to the topic of today's live stream. Why back pain and sciatica is not your problem. We're going on how we feel. How we feel is useless. It's useless. There's nothing that allows you in how you feel to have any kind of predictor of the current capacity of your body. Right? When someone says, hey, can you help me lift this sofa? You go, yeah, maybe. Because you use that and you evaluate it in context with the other things that you have lifted. But you haven't lifted anything that you've measured over the last 2 years. I mean, you might have done, right? Again, we're limited on the comments in these kind of scenarios. But you haven't measured anything. And so the thing with the rehabilitation work is you need to do that for the long term. The greatest gift of a back injury, we had one of the people, Lindy, I think I saw it on the sciatica podcast, she posted, she said, I'm stronger now at 63 than after a back injury than I was at 33. That is going to be the case for many of you if you use this as a wake-up call to actually do things in the right way. Because what I said earlier, 95% of you guys haven't ever done any significant strength training that's been effective for an extended period of time. And so we know that that's the baseline of most of the population. Maybe not you specifically watching this right now, but most of the population. 95% is a big number, right? 93 to 96 and a bit percent, based on what I was discussing the other day on the live. And so that's why your rehab is so important. Because if you know that if you've used the safe, controlled environment of your rehabilitation exercises, your squat and your hip hinge, and you've steadily built up over the last 2 years to doing 75, 80, 90 kilos on the squat or hip hinge for 10 reps without causing any aggravation to your symptoms, number one, you'll probably be feeling even better than you are right now. And number two, you can then use that as an evaluation. What are you looking to get into, right? What activities are we looking to get into? And then, please bear in mind, this isn't perfect. It's not perfect, right? I mentioned the other week about me going and doing paddle, right? I'm not conditioned for jumping and running around on a court. My knees are not conditioned for that change direction, jumping, leaping. I can still do it, but I could feel, oh, you know, I need to get into this smarter. Not just go and do an hour and a half, 2 weeks on the trot. Not a smart move, right? You've got to slowly feed yourself into it. When I first started jiu-jitsu, I felt like I'd been in a car accident. Like, and not to make light of that, but I was, you know what it's like, right? Or what it was like for me, you know? But you adapt to it. You adapt to it. So now I can do that and be relatively-ish okay. You feel a bit sorry for yourself, but you're okay, right? So you've got to then, in a smart way, move over to the new thing, right? And so steadily introduce. So let's just say, for example, we're looking to get into golf. Don't go and do 18 holes with the guys if you haven't done it in a while. Maybe go up the driving range. Take some of the shorter irons, 9, 8, maybe up to 7. Hit a few. Sorry. Yeah, no, that was the right way around. It shows the last time I played golf. And play, do 30, 60 balls, something like that. And then maybe the next time you do a little bit more. And then you think about, oh, maybe I'll go and do a 9-hole. And then you might build up to an 18-hole, right? How we get into the thing is smart. It needs to be smart. If we're doing running, we use the example of steadily getting into running by maybe doing some sets and reps instead of just going and doing 5K, 3K, 2K, 1K, because you don't know when you should have stopped. Whereas if you do a couple of sets of on-off, 60 seconds on, 60 seconds off, and you do 2 or 3 sets of that, something that's very, very safe, and then scale that over subsequent sessions, you only ever went over by 60 seconds. And that allows you to get into the thing. And then sure, you can go off and do your other more complicated things, but feeding yourself into those things in a smart way makes the world of difference. But you want to do that with a foundation of some degree of demonstrable, objective strength that's there.
Now, that answer, that was following on from Adrian, so wanted to get back into sports, etc.
Yeah.
But following a disc herniation, I just wanted to potentially, if you're ready for it, just talking about that sciatica podcast, because you mentioned Lindy's comment as well on there, just the feedback that we had. It's a fantastic resource for everyone to go and watch.
So a lot of you guys have seen the masterclass that we did, which was an 80-minute kind of workship style thing a couple of years ago. And we just released this week, just gone, on the YouTube channel, on the website, the sciatica podcast, sciatica masterclass, if you will. And I just want to say thank you to all you guys. Some of you guys have put some really nice comments on there. It's been really, really appreciated. And those kind of, deep dive articles and podcasts is about 40 minutes long. Really do, they take a lot of work, but I'm really glad to see it's helpful for you guys. And just wanted to say thank you to all of you guys that have been posting on there and sharing it and that kind of stuff, because it was really cool. If you haven't seen it, you can check it out on the YouTube channel or on the website.
Yeah, and I feel like you're downplaying the amount of work it is, because you do write the entire article.
Yeah.
Which this
it was like about 3,000 to 4,000 words.
Yeah, so it takes a lot of research, a lot of time writing the article in order to get all the content for you guys, and then of course film it. So
and edit it, and all the other stuff.
So thank you all to the lovely comment, and if you haven't seen it, please go and see it, because Mike really does go into so much depth on sciatica. And so if you're struggling,
I really wasn't sure if it was too much.
Symptoms, obviously not. Because
I know.
Please do. It's on the YouTube channel. It's the latest video, so you can just watch it there.
It's one of those examples of education, because I'm not doing the exercises, but explaining. That is important, right?
Well,
we've got videos on showing it, right? We've got plenty of videos on showing the exercise and whatever it may be, but the understanding is really important, especially with sciatica, because it's so often people are focusing again on the sciatic symptom rather than the actual injury.
Amazing, right?
Where are we going next?
Let's do Paul, and then James just had a quick one about his annual renewal. Hi, Mike. I assume my membership is all in order. Annual membership automatically charged annually on.
Yeah, I may as well. I'll touch on the Black Friday. Okay. Guys, those of you that are members, if you've had a previous Black Friday offer from, let's say, last year, James, you being in this category, as long as nothing's changed, bank details or anything like that, payment details, that's all good, right? It'll just go through as long as the subscription is on auto renew and you keep your rate. For those of you that have seen about this year's Black Friday offer, it is we do one sale on the membership each year. We never do any other sales. That's the only sale we do. And we do it on the yearly membership. The primary reason for this is those of you that want to stay part of the community, and we've had many of you guys that have been with us for a good while, we always want to offer you guys the best way to keep up with the program, right? For the long term. And we've had tons of new features that have rolled out over this last year, the whole revamp of the program, and much more in the pipeline as well. So it's a means of you guys saying thank you to you guys. You get the best discount on the yearly rate, and also more importantly, it's always locked in. So as long as, just like James is saying here, as long as your subscription is set to auto renew, which they are by default, and your payment details are correct, everything will just go through without any trouble on whatever date that is that it's set to renew. But I will say the Black Friday offer ends at the end of this month. We will have more details on the Sunday email about that and the price changes as well. So do keep an eye out for that. That Sunday email will be going out this Sunday. 8:15 a.m. is when it usually goes out UK time.
Okay, super.
Any other questions, guys, you can let us know. And we've already had a number of you guys that have been emailing us about it as well. So any other questions, please do ask.
Yeah, fire them in. Paul, we've just copied and pasted the link to that sciatica video in the YouTube channel. Sorry, TikTok, I can't do that because it's on a phone.
Guys, if you're on TikTok, just send us a DM and say, hey guys, can you send me a link to the sciatica masterclass? And then we'll send you that.
Okay, perfect. There's another one from Paul. Can I check with the program, do the core 5 exercises help to reduce the sciatica, or are they there to make the back stronger? In the first instance, I want to be pain-free so I can return to work and life.
Okay. Let me explain how the exercises work. You've got relief-based work, which is like the core relief part of the program, which are exercises that are relieving the underlying injury. Again, even in this comment, we're going back to symptoms rather than the actual injury. The injury generates the symptoms, so you address the injury that is generating the symptoms to get symptom relief. Right? Now, there are some quirky, funny things. I'm sure, Paul, there are certain positions and funny things you can get into where if you just try, and you'll see these on social media, right? If you lie off the edge of the sofa, put one arm over and twist like this, you're going to get it feel better. Right? And that's just playing around with the architecture of the spine to open out a space, and boom, you feel nice. The question is that category number 3? Cat-cow, child's pose, all of those things. Things that you will have been doing for a long period of time that are creating some symptom relief at the expense of the underlying problem, so you go around in circles. That's why fundamentally we get to this point where we are in such an issue. And again, I know we say I just want to return to work and life, but I'm sorry, that's the reason we're in this position, because we often ignore the back for too long, right? I always say, and I've said it a couple of times in this last week, you can either prioritize rebuilding your back, fixing your back injury, or it will force you to prioritize it when you least want it to. And often results in this kind of scenario where we're like, oh man, I can't do anything, I can't even work. And that's a big problem, right? The back injury needs to be the priority. So we have core relief work, which is helping provide relief for strain on the root cause of your sciatica. Some people find that works very, very quickly. Others takes a little more time. But you're doing that in conjunction with the rehabilitation work. And this is how the rehabilitation works. Much of the reason Paul and others that are in the before joining the program, you're struggling every day is because you are weak, vulnerable, you're moving in ways that are constantly flaring your back up. I'm sure you know that you could do something right now or in the next 10 seconds to make your sciatica significantly worse. It will involve moving the spine in some way, shape, or form. And so the fundamental error is that you have no conscious capacity to stabilize and control the spine effectively from one moment to the next. So in the first instances, your rehabilitation exercises, meaning the core 5 and others, are teaching you how to stabilize your spine. You can make technical improvements in a matter of seconds, minutes, hours, and days, because it's just a learning thing, right? If you're sincerely working at it. So yes, and many people will often state that they get some significant improvement in symptoms, not resolution, improvement in symptoms very, very quickly in a matter of days, because they are starting to control their spine better. Ergo, they are not aggravating their back every 5 seconds that they go to move, because they're more conscientious about how they're doing things, right? Then as we progress on, you are actually building strength, which makes you more resilient. Now, while this is taking place, you're reducing the frequency with which you're aggravating the root cause injury that is generating the symptoms of sciatica or the symptoms of back pain or buttock pain or whatever it is, numbness in the big toe, so that more healing can gather more momentum. We've all had that scenario where we've just injured ourselves, it's scabbed over, we pick the scab off, it bleeds all over the place. Then if we pick the scab off, we allow healing to take place more uninterrupted and we pick it off next week, it bleeds a little bit, maybe a little bit pus, but it stops bleeding quite quickly. Then if we left it for a week or 2 or 3 weeks and the scab was still there because it's going through that healing process, we pick it off and there's some pink skin underneath, right? The problem is so many of you guys keep picking the scab off when it's fresh, so it just bleeds all over the place. Obviously the lower back I'm talking about here. And so the purpose of the rehab in early stages is just to stop picking the scab every single day, so often. And what will happen, mark my words, Paul, I would also suggest you go and watch the Back Recovery Journey podcast. Just type that in on the website, you'll find it. Or if you type in backinshapeprogram.com, Back Recovery Journey, please watch this. And he's just said, now I'm a member, but please go and watch this anyway, because it's a very important one. You will start to feel better, and then you will go back to work and life. And then you're going to trip yourself up, because all of that strain gets piled back onto the spine before it's ready. And that's a classic mistake that people make midway through the program. The things that they had previously stopped doing because of the injury, because of the pain, because of the discomfort, they just dump back on because they're feeling better from one moment to the next, but they haven't built the strength and resilience capable of dealing with that, and they push themselves a bit too far. And they think, oh, it's not working. It's like, no, you've just added on too much stuff again. So watch out for that error, because it catches a lot of people out, innocently so. But we reference that particular video in the educational material. So if you're new to the program, you will cover that, hopefully, right? Hopefully you're covering the educational material. I know people don't, because we can see what you guys do and what you skip out. And when you answer the checkpoint questions and when you don't answer the checkpoint questions, we can see all of that. So please do them. They're there for a reason. They will help you. They fill out the wider process of getting you guys better.
Okay, user here on TikTok said, will these help someone with a herniated disc, 5 years, a very tight leg and sciatica? I think they did have a little bit more information. I have a herniated L5-S1, 5 years, my legs have been so tight with disc pain. Is there any fix or surgery? I can't straighten the leg, raise, etc. Walking funny. So
yep. You need You need to do the rehabilitation work. We have members that have had it for 5 minutes, 5 months, 5 years, 5 weeks, and even decades. And you can turn it around. You can turn it around if you follow the process correctly. If you start actually engaging with this process and realize that most of the reason we can go through 5 years constantly feeling like we're going nowhere is because, quite honestly, it all starts out where we kind of ignore it to start with, right? Because back pain often doesn't first show its head, or a back injury doesn't first show its head in a significant manner, although it does sometimes, it often doesn't. And when we do case histories with new patients over the years in a clinical environment, they might say that they've had it for 6 weeks, but actually on further inspection, it's actually been that they've had it on and off for the last 20 years. They've just been finding that the episodes have been getting gradually more intolerable, and it's reached a point where the symptom, the back pain or sciatica, has become significant enough to bother them. It's nothing to do with the injury. This whole time it's been nothing to do with the injury. It's just been whether these symptoms have been significant enough. Because mark my words, if they had a significant herniation objectively on the MRI and no symptoms, they'd just carry on. They wouldn't think of giving the moment to actually build back resilience and back health. And we know this again because of the stats. 7 and 4.5% of women, 7 of men, 4.5% of women do any kind of resistance training. So are doing any kind of resilience building in the back. And so that's an important thing to bear in mind when we think of our back. It's very, very likely that we have been allowing that back pain or back injury to constantly be aggravated over the years. And then, so we first of all, we haven't dealt with it when we needed to. We've kind of ignored it. Then when we do get to a point the first time, we go to the doctor, they say, hey, don't want to take these muscle relaxants, do a bit of like hugging the knees or something like that, and it'll go away. Then we get to the point where it's 5 years on. It's the original thing, and we feel like nothing can fix it. But we have been the reason that that back injury hasn't been getting better, because unlike other injuries in the body, you don't have a second arm. Well, or rather, if I've sprained this wrist, I can use my right one. If I sprain my left ankle, I can lean more on my right leg. If I do my knee meniscus like I did the other month, I can use my right leg a little bit more. I can lean, I can compensate. With the spine, you only have one, so you can't do that. And therefore, the education component is so much more important, because we can't remove the fact that your lumbar spine is being used and abused every day in spite of the fact that it's injured. And so that's why so many people struggle. But when you get the sort of stuff I was talking about with reference to Paul's question, when we get a bit of guidance, when we start learning how to control ourselves better, when we fill the endless list of things that is you don't know what you don't know, we all of a sudden start to find that even in the cases where we've had it for years, we can turn it around pretty quick. And I would argue, in some cases, actually it's better that you've had it for years. Because all too often people want to be in the scenario where I've had back pain for the last 2-3 weeks, it'll just go away, or I don't need to, or it's not really that much of a problem. Oh yeah, just do a quick thing and it'll go away. And actually the person needs to go through the process of realizing that actually you've tried a bunch of things and they haven't worked because they haven't been the right sort of things to fix the problem. And then they can actually commit to doing the right sort of things and actually get better.
Awesome. Did you see the Paul? He said, I am now
Yes,
a member.
yeah,
Welcome,
yeah,
Paul.
that's awesome.
Great to have you. Right, another question here. So, if after 2 years of sciatica it's gotten better, less pain, can one bad movement cause cauda equina?
I'm assuming that the person has cauda equina now, and they thought it had gotten better. And that, again, it's so cool when like I put a comment, like a title to the live, and then like the questions just tie into it so nicely. Mm-hmm. This is the fundamental problem that you guys really need to stop making. You're going on how you feel, and how you feel is irrelevant. It's so irrelevant when it comes to evaluating your level of integrity, your level of strength, your level of resilience. How you feel is so irrelevant. I mean, yeah, maybe it's got a little bit of relevance, but it's wholly useless in evaluating where you're at. So often, a large proportion of people will be in this category where they have bad pain, they just shrink their life down significantly to the point where they're not doing anything to aggravate it. The body's trying to heal every day. But strengthening is the extension of healing. And if you haven't explicitly done the strengthening, then it's just healed to a baseline level. I use the example, and I'll maybe go off on a little bit more of a tangent here. I used to deadlift 230 something kilos for a couple of reps. Currently, if I did that, I'm quite convinced that I would damage something quite substantially. I do not do that at the moment. I haven't done that in quite some years. Because the process of adaptation in these discs, bones, ligaments, tendons, the rest, my fingers from holding onto the bar, is a process that is dynamic and is bidirectional. I spent years building up the strength in my system and in my bones and in my discs to be able to tolerate that amount of load. Some of you guys, the 7% of guys and 4.5% of ladies, will have done this. It is an anabolic process. It is a process by which your body lays down more tissue of varying sorts to increase its resilience. I haven't done that and kept up that stimulation to my body. And therefore, the body has gone, do you know what? It's really expensive for us to maintain this stuff. So we're going to just break it down and not rebuild it to the same kind of level because we don't need to, because it's completely unnecessary. It's why we aren't walking around being able to bench press, 300 kilos, because the body requires the stimulation to tell it it's necessary to build to that level. And when we stop, we shrink away to a level that is being maintained according to the stimulation. So when you have a back injury, not only do you injure L5-S1, but if you've had an extended period of not doing very much, the stimulation that you were doing before the injury that was keeping all of this healthy and strong, your hips, the muscles, the tendons of your glutes and hamstrings, which often we get tendonitis associated with this, right? All of those other areas weaken as well. If you go from being relatively active, just maintaining a certain level of low-grade strength, and you have an injury in your back, it's not just the L5-S1 that is a problem. This is why it's so bad to go chronic, and why it's such a problem that some of the targets that they have in the UK here anyway, with helping people with back pain, like it's to see a specialist by 18 weeks. 18 weeks, you've gone 50% past the point at which you've turned chronic. You've had muscle wasting. You've lost what little strength and resilience you did have in your body in a significant order. So when we come to feeling better after that X amount of time, if we haven't done anything to rebuild a degree of strength and resilience into our lumbar spine, we are vulnerable. And if we're vulnerable, a more innocuous kind of thing can cause us to have an injury. I use the example of my brother and the example of an old lady, an osteoporotic old lady who's got a degradation of the health. She bumps her shoulder or sneezes too heavily and fractures a vertebra. My brother, on the other hand, decides to go sparring with a 120-kilo MMA fighter and injures his shoulder. Sure, it's not broken, but he was injured because he's built up a level of resilience to be able to deal with a certain amount of strain. The lady's example here, just osteoporosis example, the person has broken down. Now, you don't need to have any sort of postmenopausal complex, if you will, to result in that example. But the point is the body is going to build up and break down depending on what you do. And the problem, the more insidious problem of having a back injury at L5-S1 specifically, is that L4, L3, 4, L5-S1, all the other segments and the bones and the tendons and the ligaments and the muscles weaken as well, not even related to the injury, but related to the inactivity, the stimulation that those tissues no longer get given on a daily basis for an extended period of time. So you waste away. Another example for me, I'm trying to hit this so you understand how the body works, right? And how you can apply this to your injury and why rehab is so important and measurable rehab as opposed to just how you feel, right? Before we had Celestia last year, I would bench press 120 kilos for 7, 8 reps. I currently only do 4 to push 3 most of the time. And I've taken a year to build back up to that because I had sleepless nights, and I'm not making a case for me, Lara. I had sleepless nights, disruption in my ability to provide training. I also did a competition in the middle of that from a jiu-jitsu point of view where I wasn't exposing my body to that strain. So I am measurably weaker right now than I was a year ago, but I'm building back up. Very, very clear example. It happens to us all. But I was starting at 120 kilos on the bench press. Many of you guys can't competently handle 20 or 30 kilos before you injured your lower back. What do you have to lose? Not very much before it starts to become a problem. So then is it any wonder when we go to start our rehab that we're struggling and we're lying on the floor, not able to wiggle one leg without aggravating our sciatica because we have next to no control? Well, of course. That doesn't mean you're broken. That just means you're starting from a low point. And you need to respect that and then build back up from there. Hopefully that makes sense. I know it's a bit of a tangent, but like understanding that one of the additional consequences of this kind of stuff is that. Okay there?
Yeah, the screen just went completely black, and I was like, oh no, we've lost everything.
Yeah,
we're back.
Awesome.
Okay, a question here from Meji. So we are recovering, but become weaker and more prone to any injury, especially the spine, hips, and legs.
So
as you are recovering.
let me clarify that. I think where maybe what I'm saying in that last part is that before you start doing proper rehabilitation, right? And throw out the window. If you're saying, oh yeah, but I did physio, Mike, it's like, no, you didn't. Like physio, there are all sorts of different levels of physio. If we think of physio as physical rehabilitation, whether it's delivered by a physiotherapist or not, that doesn't matter, right? Precisely what you've done. Proper progressive rehabilitation work is of what I would argue is physical therapy. It might start off very lightweight, like we described in the program, right? But until the point that you start doing rehab, a lot of you guys have been struggling. You've just been doing less and less and less. So in that scenario, you are becoming weaker and weaker and weaker as you're struggling to deal with your lower back pain. So many times people say, well, I'm going to wait for the next 6 weeks to do anything because I'm having surgery in 6 weeks' time. So all that time you're getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And then you're expecting that body that's weaker, more vulnerable, outside of the back injury itself, to be able to deal with the changes post-back surgery. Is that a smart move? Probably not, right? When you start your rehab, you are reversing that trend. And in the first instances, you're not really doing so much to reverse the trend of muscle loss. You're reversing that, you're learning that technique, right? You have to be careful with this kind of thing. It's not a foregone conclusion that you know how to train properly. Even if you've trained before, there are certain things that some of you guys that have done CrossFit and other bits and pieces that have injured yourself, errors that you have gotten away with, that you won't get away with when you're recovering from the back injury. Most of all, things like the butt wink, allowing your bum to tuck under, other little movement quirks that worked for your Olympic lifts and for your high performance work that required you to have a strong spine to use as, and strong ligaments and muscles in the back to use as a spring to help you lift more than you can do with strict form because you're doing it in a competitive environment. That will transfer over to your rehab and trip you up unless you are aware of that. Important.
Okay, awesome.
Megan
also said, so eat, sleep to recover, exercise to build muscle, stability, stretch to relax.
Yep.
That's pretty good.
And one of the tricks there is some of you guys, unfortunately, fall into the habit of, once you get into it, you start seeing results. You're like, oh, I've got to keep working out, I keep doing it every day. And then some of you guys, specifically in the phase 4 level, you run into the risk of actually overtraining. You don't realize that it's actually in the time that we're not training. Training provides the stimulation that the body responds to over the subsequent 24, 48, 72 hours, right? If you just hammer yourself again every day, then that's a problem itself. That's why your rehab is not a sheet of paper. That's why it needs to evolve as you go through the process. Very important.
Awesome, which leads perfectly into one of the users here on TikTok said, I'm giving this program a shot. There is no way I am having surgery. I just wanted to read that out. Fantastic. Love to have you on board. But please, if you do sign up to the program, please make sure that you are watching all the educational videos.
Like I said earlier,
we watch. Doing it, by the book.
Yep. First thing, I think we will wrap it up after this. Yeah? Were there any more on there?
There's a few more.
Okay, well, do you go through those? Yeah, that'd be awesome. Go ahead.
I just really wanted to hammer that point home.
Yeah,
please do it properly.
Yeah, let me explain. I'll explain on that while you load up the next one, Lara.
Okay.
When you join the program, this is just a bit of a tip for you guys. When you join the program, firstly, you run phase 1 and core relief work. Those are the 2 sections of the program that you work through to start. You go through each of those sections, have strategy videos which explain precisely how you are going to go about the material in this phase. Then you have and when to move on, and how the core relief work feeds into the phase 1, 2, 3, and 4 work that you will do over the coming weeks and months. And then you have specific tutorial videos on how to correctly perform the individual task, activity, exercise, stretch that you are doing. Then you have the live routine, which is just a video. You press play and you follow along. You do it in real time. But you do that based on the work you've already done. So you will have watched a good number of videos before you even start doing any rehab, and that is necessary. Those of you that are like, I just want to do the exercise, no. You guys hold your horses, pump the brakes, right? And those of you that want to analyze everything, you don't need to go through all of the 40 educational videos in phase 1 before you start the exercises as well, right? There's some of you guys that want to rush ahead, some of you guys that want to go too slow, and we need to find that middle ground. So that's why the strategy is there for you.
Amazing. And Rachel's asked here, so I hope that's helpful for you, Rachel. What can I expect in the program?
The best thing you can do is if you're on TikTok, you can go over to, you can also send us a DM and we'll just send you a direct link. If you go to the link in the profile page, there's a video that explains a little bit more there. There's also a video on the website, backinshapeprogram.com/join, which we often send out to you guys when you ask this kind of question. And that has a more detailed video, which shows you inside the members area a little bit, shows you inside the actual material, breakdown, and a bit of what I've just discussed, just with visuals. And we actually showed you guys on one of the live streams last week. I think I shared the screen with you guys as well. I can't do that now because it's not set up, but yeah. Awesome. 4 phases of the program, supporting the members area to guide you through the process, and a whole troubleshooting library, and much, much more.
She said, where was it? Does it provide daily guidance?
You should be going on there every day to either do your study, your strategy, your tutorials, or follow along with the live workouts, yes. Okay. And then obviously you reach out to us. We have members, what often happens is, you need to do a bit of study, then you need to do a bit of execution, then you've got some questions. Then you come into the group, people will come into the members area, they'll post their questions, X, Y, Z. Maybe there's a bit back and forth, upload a video, get some form checks, and then they go off and they do their thing again, and then they come back into the group, they go, hey guys, I've just started doing the load, adding the load in, I've got a couple more questions. Boom, a couple of questions, a bit of back and forth, a new video, let's see how it's looking, boom, and then you go off again, right? Oh, I had a flare up, what do I do? Boom, back into the group, and it's these touch points, right? Just like we said earlier with the example in the clinic, where the person forgets what we've discussed for the last 45 minutes. Well, those appointments back in the day were an hour and a half, right? Because we do that and we do treatment as well. And then they've walked out of the clinic and they haven't even got out a visual eye shot of the door and they're already doing the wrong things, right? And this is why these touch points are so much better in the online environment than the clinical appointment. Because you go to an appointment, even if you come here, right? And we go through a clinical appointment, we're an hour and a half going through everything, you forget 50% of what we've said by the time you've driven home. Maybe you've made some notes, but it's so much better to get these moment-to-moment guidance points to steer you along the way on a more real-time basis.
Okay, cool. That was an interesting exchange. Here, Garcia on TikTok said, squats and hip hinges are helping me. I can tell the difference in my day-to-day life. And then
that's why they're in there.
Fun Boss Anchor said, did you hurt your back before? I think whether or not you have.
Is that me? Is that me? Is asking me? Yeah.
No, asking Garcia. Did you have back pain before you started doing the squats and hip hinges? But in actual fact,
I think if there's one subtle message you've taken away from this is that the best time to start the rehab or join the program was before you injured your back.
So regardless, if you have back pain,
that was my point.
These are fundamentals that we should all be doing.
If there's one thing I hope that all members get from going through the program, more than anything else, it's that you commit to make resistance training for the long term part of your life. Because the benefits of that go far beyond your back health, longevity, all sorts of benefits of actually getting into the habit of doing this a couple times a week. Like, yes, it's more intensive when we're dealing with coming out of the hole, but the maintenance of that and making progressive change over the long term is so easy, and it's so rewarding on so many different levels to your own health and well-being, and I would argue by extension many other different domains.
Okay, amazing.
Should we wrap that up there?
Well, sorry. I'm a bricklayer. I get back spasms doing up my shoes and getting up from sitting down. Any idea?
Really reevaluate how you're moving your body. You'll probably be spending, we're doing some bricklaying, a significant amount of time. We've got to change that. We've got to change that. We really got to change that.
Okay.
You going to say?
We've got a couple more on YouTube. I don't know whether you want to wrap it up there.
I think we'll wrap it up for today.
Okay.
We'll wrap it up today, guys.
Sorry, guys. Too many questions.
Yes, they're coming in. Guys, we're going. The reason I say we'll wrap it up, we're going on the live again tomorrow. Yeah. So those of you, I know there's going to have been. I can't see TikTok today, you guys. Lara's got it. I know there'll be many questions on there that we haven't got to. Guys, we're doing these a good couple of times a week. Hopefully, it's been really helpful for you. If you came onto the live today, didn't manage to get the question answered, you can always join us tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the last live of the week. Go on.
I was just going to say, for you guys on TikTok, we had a lot of people. We had like 100 people on TikTok.
Yeah.
But guys, it's much easier for us to
if you're on YouTube.
Comments.
Jump into YouTube.
Jump into the YouTube, because right now, tomorrow I won't be here, so it's Mike doing it all on his own. Yeah. And it's so much easier for you to get your questions answered if you are live on the YouTube channel.
Yeah. Guys, and of course, if you're in the membership area, if you're in the program, you can always head over there for help and support anytime. So just go into the members area, post your questions, post your videos, etc. If you're in the Facebook group, you're on there. Awesome. You do have to be a member to be in the Facebook group as well, for those of you that don't know. So we're there to help you guys. And guys, if you've been struggling for a long period of time, if you've been struggling with back pain, struggling with sciatica, herniated discs, I know there'll be some of you guys on TikTok. I know there have been today on YouTube as well. do check out the program. There'll be a pinned comment on the YouTube, so you can check that out after this. If you're watching on it, most people watch this after the fact rather than in real time. And those of you on TikTok, there is the profile page up at the top. Go and watch the video there in the link on that page, and you're welcome to join.
Last thing for the guys on TikTok, so many comments, send me the link for the sciatica
Yes,
video.
if you guys want links to anything, if you're on TikTok, just send us a DM.
Please
send us a DM, and then we can just copy and paste it in as we go through. It just makes it work better for us, so we make sure we get everything done.
Fantastic. I think that's it.
Thanks,
Awesome.
guys.
Thanks,
Have a great
guys.
week, and thanks for joining.
Thank
Take it
you.
easy.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.